Welcome to the Southern California PGA Catalyst webinar series brought to you by PXG. Get ready to transform your game. With PXG, you'll experience exceptional quality and innovative technologies that produce real, measurable results on the golf course.
We are a fitting company.
Unlike anything else, we go through perfection. We approach everything with the idea that it's going to be fit.
Just maximum customization.
All I need you to tell me is, does it look the way I want it to? Does it feel good?
There's so much work that goes on behind the scenes. That's really where PXG stands out. Go farther, be more forgiving, and make it 100% right for you.
That's the experience we're all looking for.
It's just fun.
You need to go get fit for your golf club.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Catalyst webinar series presented by the Education Committee for the Southern California PGA. The Catalyst webinar series is a bi-weekly educational platform for creating success and change in your club and career. We're very excited to have seasoned Southern California PGA veteran, Mr. Rick Danruther, on this morning with us. Rick is the General Manager, Director of Golf at
Sierra Lakes.
At Sierra Lakes in Rialto. He's been there for many years. Rick was the regional manager for the Donovan Brothers golf operation for 25 and a half years. He currently oversees 4 courses, one of course being Sierra Lakes. The other 3 he'll talk about here in a little bit here. He's got experience in private clubs, public golf courses, and resort golf. He has the 5th course coming online here in early November, which he's excited to talk about. And we're glad to have him here today. Good morning, Rick. Thanks for joining us on the Catalyst webinar series.
Hey, John, how's everyone doing out there? Hopefully we keep this casual. Let's keep this just like we just got done with a round of golf and we're hanging out in the locker room. And please ask John any questions you want. It's kind of strange doing this without a live audience. So any questions you got, let her rip. I love it. We can go any way we want. As John said, I've most of my career I've been in public golf courses, but I also was in a private club in Victoria Club when I was an assistant. That was really cool. I worked for a resort course, and so I kind of been all around the board. John and I were just talking about when he was at American Golf to when he's at South Hill. So, you know, it really is one extreme to the other. I mean, you're all in the golf business, but it is kind of a totally different world. So, you know, one thing I want to talk about today is work-life balance, and you know, I kind of learned everything the hard way. And here's some things that hopefully some tips and some suggestions I can give that they'll help you guys out a lot. I know work-life balance is kind of a hot topic, but I also kind of look at it like, you know, man, it wasn't that long ago where you know, golf hasn't had all these glory days that we've had the last 5 or 6 years. I've been through 2 or 3 recessions, and you know, at a public course, you're just hoping someone comes in the door, or you're looking at your tee sheet and you're like, Jesus Christ, I only got 80 people booked. What are we going to do today? Or, you know, when I was at a private course, I remember people were trying to sell their memberships. They couldn't sell them. They were just bailing out because they didn't want the monthly. And the ones that were left are just trying to, you know, keep the thing going. So, you know, nowadays it's amazing. I mean, every private course I've talked to, including John, everyone's full. Public courses are busy. God, the driving range business is just cranking. And, you know, instructors are how busy you want to be, how many lessons you want to give. I mean, now, you know, I was talking to Ken Farrell the other day, and there was a director of instruction job and had a pretty big salary. And I'm like, director of instruction job? I mean, you're telling me that I can be a director of instruction, not even give a lesson, I'm making this salary? I mean, that, you know, not that long ago, that was pretty unheard of. So yeah, we're all busy, but I think it's kind of a blessing. I'd much rather have it this way than when we have the dark days. And it's funny, we came out of COVID, and I kept, even on all my yearly reports and stuff, I'm like, you know, we're on a roll, but we all kind of expected it to kind of simmer down. And man, I don't. The simmering down ain't happening. So this has been a great ride. You know, I'm 58 now, so I'm kind of, you know, don't have quite the energy I used to, but this is a good thing. This is a good thing. But here's a couple things that might help you all out. but John. So, looking back after COVID, I've done everything now so much differently than I did before. I've learned so much just in the last 6-7 years that, which is good. But, again, I kind of learned everything. Seems like I've learned everything the hard way. So here's some tips for you. So, at the end of each day, I try to look at, any appointment I had, anything like that, did I really need that? Was it beneficial to me, the course, or whatever? And I try to look at that. I definitely look at that in the end of the week. And then I go, wait a minute, let's look at this. Was that beneficial to us? And I've learned that, delegating, which is not the easiest thing in the world sometimes, but it really helps out a lot. And so in the last few years, like I've been coaching for 9 years, I helped our high school team. And I kind of said, I gotta do something, man. I got too much going on here. So I let it go. That was really kind of tough. I started with my son started high school. And before that, I was coaching his baseball team. So I've been coaching like 12, 13 years. So it's tough for me to give that up. But after going through a spring without it, I was like, man, I saved so much time doing that. Also, I'm still doing the merchandising here at Cedar Lakes. I've been doing it for a long time. And I finally kind of handed that off a month ago. And it was kind of hard, I admit, because that was kind of my baby. And trained the guy how to do it. And we're off and running. And he ended up getting a job at another course. So now it's kind of back on me. But one thing you might want to look at for all of you, if you're doing all the merchandising yourself, I would seriously consider handing that off. There is a lot of time involved in that. You got, lots of salesmen and God bless them. I get it. But, golf's hot. So there's all these new products. So they're always kind of after you. So I would suggest if you're at a smaller place trying to hand it off, if you're at a club that does a lot of merchandising, it might behoove you to find a full-time merchandiser and to just get that off your plate. I think if you did that, you would save a lot of time.
Rick, in terms of the merchandise, it's such a tedious aspect of the operation, mainly because the net in terms of profitability
Correct.
is really not there when you compare it against like the dues model or the green fee, daily fee model. But it's still something that needs to be prioritized because it's such a first impression, and it's such an important amenity. I agree with you in terms of having someone to be able to take the lead on that. That's not someone who's directly responsible for the operation.
Yeah. And John, I completely agree with you. First impression, I was at a course last week on vacation, a really cool course, very busy and all that. But the golf shop was just, pretty lean, man. There wasn't much going on. So when I walk into a shop and I see kind of a dingy golf shop and stuff, at least probably 9 times out of 10. That kind of tells me what the course is going to be like. So
yeah, exactly. And like most of the people that walk into that golf shop, they're not even planning on buying anything or looking to buy anything. And it really doesn't matter if they do, but it does set the tone on their impression about the golf course.
Definitely.
If the golf shop is really lean and doesn't look like it's prioritized at check-in, now that, like good juju begets more good juju, bad juju begets more bad juju. So it's once they see a golf shop gives them a bad impression, now they're looking at areas of the rough that aren't cut down, 100% turf coverage because something they look at that they weren't looking at before. It like puts a negative spin on the start of the round that gets people looking for more bad things.
Exactly. So you might want to look at handing that off, because you will save. Even the couple of weeks where I handed off to him, I was like, wow, I picked up quite a bit of time there. So what I try to do is again look at every appointment I do, every meeting. Like Mark Cuban, he has he says he hates meetings, and I hate meetings too. I really, as I've gotten older, I hate them. But he says if someone's giving me a check, I'll meet with them. And so I don't have formal meetings here at the golf course, but I'll do quick hitters. Like this morning, I talked to my golf guy real quick, see how things are going. As soon as the F&B guy gets here, I'm going to hit him. I do a round and I'll go see the starters and the marshals. I'll hit everybody quick, but it's a quick hitter, see what's going on and to set the tone. But as far as big meetings go on, and if you're at a place that does a lot of meetings, or John and I were talking about, one of his old employers, they were kind of big on meetings, and I had one of those before. Jesus Christ, you're just always doing meetings. And so, you kind of want to look at those and and say, maybe we can trim these down, or if you're the guy setting it, was it really beneficial? Because it is a time consuming and expensive to do this. So, basically I got, the owners, I got 4 courses I'm managing. I got 1 in the hopper. So I got, my bosses at Donovan Brothers, there's 3 of them. So I'm answer to them. I got at each course, I got an owner or an owner's rep. So there's probably a couple more. And then, and those are the guys. And then below them, I have my supers at each course. If I have an F&B person, and I got my manager, and those are my guys.
Rick, what are the 3 other courses that you oversee besides Sierra Lakes?
I got River Lakes Ranch all the way in Bakersfield, which is not an enjoyable drive, by the way. Got Arroyo Seco Golf Course in South Pasadena, which is doing very well. That's a cool course. And I got Hesperia Golf Course up in the high desert, which is doing really well too. So, so they're kind of spread out, and that's where kind of a lot of my time comes in, is when, I like to do site visits, because I like to look guys in the eye and look at the product and see what's going on. But, I'm in my car a lot, and it's like, Jesus, but I still think you got to be there to look at what's going on and see them in the eye. So basically my owners, bosses, my generals underneath me, they can get a hold of me at anytime, Saturday, Sunday, whatever you got to do. It's important. I think it's really important to communicate with your bosses. Ken Farrell mentioned that when I emailed him this week. He said, make sure you talk about, you got your bosses, you got the guys who sign your paycheck. How available are you? And that's huge. And I think sometimes at a course, especially a private club, you're kind of pulled, and you're pulled in a lot of different directions. And it's a different ball game. At a private course, 300 members, most of them, they all want to talk to the manager. They all want to talk to the pro. And so you're kind of spread out, and it is kind of tricky. And if I did it all over again, if I was at a private course again, I saw, Jeff Cross, my old boss at Victoria Club. He was the master. I mean, he's worked there. This is his only job he's ever had. His only W-2. His whole career goes back to Victoria Club. And I saw how he did it. I saw a couple other places do this too. Is the pro would be on the tee box Saturday morning, or he'd open the shop and he'd be at the tee box. So now you got, all the heavy hitters are playing that day. They're all probably in a good mood. They finally get their time with the guys to play golf. Most of the directors and the presidents are going to play. The up and coming guys on the committees, everyone's playing. So you got them for 10 minutes on the tee. So they're all in pretty good moods. They haven't shot 105 yet. They're not grosh yet. So you get a few minutes with each of them. And that was big to watch, because they all wanted to touch you. They all want a piece of you. And so I would do that. And then what I would try to do is move into doing some lessons, maybe late morning with some juniors or the spouses. I would get them going too. So that way, when the main guy's done playing, the kids are there, spouse is there, having lunch. Maybe they go out and play a few holes. Hey, this is great. We're getting our money's worth at the club, and you've touched most everybody. Maybe go out and see how they're doing when they're playing in the afternoon. And then, by the time you're done, you've kind of reached everybody. Versus, I certainly wouldn't try to hang out at the bar after they're done playing. They shot a shitty score. They got a couple pops in them. They're frustrated, and then here you come, and you're gonna get it. So you got to be careful with that. So I would do that at a private course as I was there. Here in the public world, it's not quite the same thing. Although, it's funny how still people are gravitated towards you. Like sometimes, if I got to go to the kitchen, I can sneak through the back hallway. I got a key if I'm in a hurry to go get some lunch or see what's going on. Because if I go through the lounge or the bar, it might take me a half hour by the time I get done. Hey, Rick, what's going on? And then you got to go through all that. And it's important, I get it, but you got to be careful with your time. And so again, at the end of the day, I look at everything I've done. Is it worth it? Did it help the course? And I like to be involved in the rainmaking, the rainmaking of what can we do to bring in more revenues. So I love to get involved in that stuff. I don't like, and it's getting more tedious to be involved with things that, dealing with HR issues and dealing with the state requirements and stuff like that. That's fortunately, going back to delegating, I have a really good person working with me now the last about 2 and 3 years, and she's just hungry. So every time I hand her off stuff, and she's all over it. So I can kind of throw those things at her and stick to the rainmaking. And Jeff Bezos talks about, he always talks about, set aside some time each day to focus on thinking and growing your business. I mean, I'm going to think for 30 minutes. That's pretty wild, to think about that. But he's done pretty well. So,
So, Rick, quick question.
yeah.
In terms of working for, a corporation that's got, 25 properties, the ever-changing and evolution of doing business in California, it's been very dynamic to say the least, especially
Yes.
over the last 15 years. Being a smaller, not mom and pop management company, I'm not going to say that, but being a smaller management company, how have you kept the energy and stayed ahead of the curve in terms of all of that dynamic change in California when it comes to doing business?
Oh, that's a good one, man. It can get frustrating, especially when you look at, when you're looking at fuel prices, when you're looking at your insurance, when you're looking at all the HR issues with, sick leave anytime you want, stuff like that. And the main thing is I try to keep it to myself. I don't need my controllers and everyone, my department heads to see me get frustrated with it, because I don't want it to go downhill. I just kind of look at it like, hey man, you got kind of a tough lie in the rough. We just got to do what we can with it. And you just kind of get through it. And then hopefully, you get done with that stuff, John, that you can get back to the rainmaking. Let's get back to the stuff that produces the rain. So, it is what it is. The one good thing with California is year round with weather and golf business. And, I'm from Indiana originally, so obviously there's a season there, but, business is good in California, I think, for everybody, and we all got to deal with those issues. So anyway, it kind of is what it is. So
I think one place that you could relate to the challenge, even despite the success of business, is the recruitment of future golf professionals, particularly from an assistant professional role.
yeah,
I think, back when you started in the business, certainly when I started in the business, it was really purely vocational, meaning you were willing to do it for minimum wage, you were willing to
yeah,
work weekends, holidays, you were willing to be, treated not the best way by not just, the people you serve, but also the people that you work for. It was kind of like almost like a priesthood, where you were willing to do whatever it took for as long as it took in order to be the guy at that club. And that kind of, post-pandemic, or the advent of technology, whatever it is that's kind of softened the workforce and taken away that kind of hard-nosed approach has really made it hard on a recruiting standpoint, because when you're just getting your foot in the door in this business, it is tough. The money's not very good, the hours are not very good, and the diligence and patience that's required to get to that head pro job, or that director of golf job, or director of instruction job, or general manager job, it takes a long time, and the perseverance that's required, I mean, it really needs to be vocational, and a lot of people don't look at it that way. They kind of want to see results faster now, because there's so many other parts of our world where you could be successful sooner than that. How do you handle that, and how do you keep recruiting for all these properties that you oversee, finding the right people?
well, it's been, you're right, John. Back in the day when you and I were coming up, it was just, you put your nose to the grindstone and just keep going. It was tough, and I had a lot of friends that finally, they got married, and they're still an assistant, and they just bailed out. They just had to jump, they had to drop the bat chute and get out. And that was tough to watch. I was just like, no, I'm just, I'm pretty stubborn. And I was like, I'm hanging in here. I'm hanging in here. I mean, even my first, head pro general manager jobs, it was rough. It wasn't paying much and stuff. And now, things have changed dramatically. The only problem is, yeah, you have a hard time finding, it's a very hard time finding a first assistant. So, I've had to kind of look at different avenues, you find guys that are kind of retired that still have some fuel in the tank, that you can bring them in, or I get some guys that, you know, maybe they're not going to do the PGA program, but they really are into golf. I've had one guy here with me for like 7-8 years. I don't know if he's ever going to do the program or not, but he's kind of my right-hand man, and it's worked out pretty good. So you just kind of got to do what you got to do to get through it. And then, you know, going back to, you know, time management and so forth, you know, again, if it's something beneficial, then stick with it. But if it's not, try to hand that off, try to end it, try to do whatever you can. You know, one thing I try to do is I got to do, you know, 4 budgets a year. I got to do marketing plans, business plans, capital reports. So one trick I've done is at the beginning of the year, you know, especially when I know we got some rain coming, we're out here in Fontana, we got a lot of wind. Excuse me. And I'll say, all right, you know, we got some bad weather coming. So I can get in my office, kind of be, you know, close my door almost. And I knock out all my budgets, all my marketing plans, all my stuff. Then, you know, by April, May, I've got all my budgets done for the year and all my marketing plans, everything done. And so that way I stay ahead. And then like just today, I got the July financials for one of my courses. I'll knock out my reports, and then I'll go into their budget that I already did months ago, and I'll kind of tweak it a little bit. So I think if you try to stay ahead, you know, I know we're going to have some downtime, you know, usually after Christmas or when it's raining and so forth. So try to use your downtime to get your big stuff out of the way. And then as far as reports, you know, here's a tip, you know, but you know, take it with a grain of salt, but because I don't want to get anyone fired or whatever, but you know, very rarely do you ever see, you know, you got 8 reports to do every month or every year. Rarely is that ever going to go down. No one's ever going to say, hey, you know what, do we really ever need that report? You know, there's a justification for one's job that kind of goes into that. So one thing I've done is towards the end of the year, like I had this huge marketing plan I had to do every year. It was big. It took me a lot of work. It was a lot. And I knew no one was looking at it. And I was getting frustrated. I'm like, I did all this fucking work. Excuse me. I did all this work and no one's looking at this thing. So I said, you know what? Let's see what happens here. So I prepared it and everything, but at the end of the year, I just kind of sat on it. I didn't send it. So that way, if one of the higher ups said, hey man, where's this plan? Oh, you know, it must not have went through on my internet. You know, here you go. I'm going to send it. And crickets. No one said anything. So I said, oh, okay. So at the end of the next year, I just changed the dates on it a little bit, and tweaked it again. I was ready. Nothing. And so I also had, for a while, we had an auditor come into one of the courses every month for the golf shop, which made no sense. I mean, we got $50,000 worth of inventory. What are we doing? And she was all over this thing, man. I mean, she'd come in and say, your lake balls are 17, your count is off by 17. I'm like, lake ball costs nothing, lady. What are we going here? And my God, it was so extensive. But that's the way she was. She was a professional auditor. It didn't matter if you were Home Depot or what. Well, then when she retired or left, I went, here it is, you know. So I trimmed that down to 1 page, and I just sent that in. And then down the road, one of the accounting offices, hey, what happened to that big, you know, that big thing we used to get every month? I said, oh, you know, we don't have to do that anymore. They go, oh, okay. So, you know, take that with a grain of salt, but rarely our report's going to go away. So you might want to look at it that way. In fact, I got one I'm going to phase out at the end of the year because I know no one's looking at this thing, and we don't need to be busy. You know, this other course that we're gonna pick up in a couple months, I was meeting with them and talking with them. Everything's going pretty cool. And it just happened to be at the end of the month, they were doing their inventories and stuff, and they were kind of showing me some things, and they showed me an inventory of the golf course maintenance department. And I'm like, huh? And it showed, you know, pounds of fertilizer, sprays, oils, gas, antifreeze, all this stuff. And I'm like, wow. I said, well, that's pretty extensive, but you know, we're not going to do that when I'm here. And they go, well, why not? I said, well, you can do it if you want, but I'm not going to read it. So there's no sense doing it. I go, we don't need to be busy. We're already, let's focus on what we do well. So let's phase that one out. And they're all like, whoa, wow, man. They're all like pumped up. And I'm like, no, you know, I go, everyone's busy. We don't need to be busier with stuff we don't need to be doing stuff just because we've always done it. So that's a tip for you.
So Rick, I got a question
Yep.
here. You know, you've been around this business a long time. You've seen several booms. We all know about the post-COVID boom. We all know about the Tiger Woods boom of the late
Yes.
90s, early 2000s, and you've seen a couple others as well. The offspring of those booms a lot of times is the building of more courses and the renovation and the improvement of existing courses. We're seeing that certainly at the private club level. A lot of clubs over the last 3 or 4 years since the pandemic have been investing back in their properties and building new clubhouses and
Yeah.
doing bunker renovations, irrigation overhauls, all those things.
Yep.
And I know it's happening on the public side as well. Can you talk a little bit about how that changes the dynamic of service and how you still stay the course with plan, but still be optimistic to the if you build it, they will come concept? Because you know, when if you recall when the pandemic first took place, it was like, okay, everybody nobody can work right now, everybody's working from home, golf's doing real well, but it's probably gonna come back down 2 3 years after the pandemic, and you know, fortunately enough, it hasn't. Can you
Right.
talk a little bit about how the dynamic of operations changes through those renovations and improvements?
Yeah. Everyone's got some money and they want to spend it, it seems like. And, I've helped build from the beginning, I think 3 golf courses and about 5 clubhouses. And anyone going through a clubhouse renovation is my hat's off to you, man. That's a tough deal. Because you're trying to operate daily, and then you're knocking down a building and you're moving everything, and that's pretty tough. And we got one facility that's thinking about doing some major improvements. So, you know, that's where I think you got to be organized, and you got to stay, you know, focused on what's going on and what's important right now. And then you got to divide it up between the day to day, and you got to divide it up with the project. And that's kind of where I come in on the projects, because those are the biggies. And one of our courses in Bakersfield, we just put in $1 million solar cover over the driving range and the parking lot. And my guy there, shout out to Todd, he did a really good job. And by the way, that shade on the driving range has been unbelievable. We doubled our summer driving range revenues by having that shade. And then we just added the Top Golf thing. So anyway, when you're doing those, boy,
You have shot tracer at Sierra
Top
Lakes?
Tracer. No, we have it at River Lakes. We just put it in a couple months ago, and that's added another dynamic. So now we're thinking about putting in a little bar service area right behind it. So the projects kind of keep going there. And the main thing I think at that point is you got to have a good right-hand man that you can lean on for the day-to-day, and stay as organized as possible with whatever project you got going on. And I've gotten pretty good at that. It is tricky because you got 2 things going on, and then while you're doing it, all the owners are, they're all fired up like a bee's nest, wanting to know what's going on. I mean, they're putting a lot of money into this, so they want to see something back, obviously. And I think that's where you just got to, I have a big list of things to do on my desk every day. It's on my computer, and it's many pages long. Some of these things I just write down some ideas I've had, and I may never get to them. But at the top half, I got some things I got to do today. No matter what, I got to do these things today. And it can change. Yesterday, actually, there's a point where I was kind of slow for me, and I was like, wow, So then I got my August month-end reports prepared. Obviously we're in the middle of August, we're not done yet, but I got my reports ready with the pictures and stuff like that. So I always try to stay a day ahead. I think that's big. But then, bing, all of a sudden, one of my bosses sent me an email. He needs this done. So, timeout, everything stops, take care of that, get going on that one, and took care of that. No problem. And then, bing, all of a sudden I get the financials for one of my courses late. So I had to, I'm working on that. I'm almost finished with that this morning. So I think if you try to stay a day ahead and you stick with your list, today's top of my list is talking with John here. So that's a biggie, but it can change dramatically. If one of the big boys calls me or emails me, everything changes. But what's good is if I knock out my stuff, let's kind of make it a reward too. If I knock out all my stuff, everything's cool. I still try to teach 1 or 2 lessons a day. I mean, I don't want to give that up, although it's getting more demanding. But maybe I'll go out and play a few holes. Maybe I'll leave and go to the gym early. So you can kind of put a reward in there too.
So, Rick, that kind of segues us into our next question here. And Randy Chang just asked. It's like, overseeing four courses. I know you're very cognizant of work-life balance, certainly for yourself and your professionals that work for you. But however, along the way, you've managed to get your certified master professional certification. You got a bachelor's degree from Ball State. So obviously continuous education has been very important to you. You and I have been talking about today's catalyst now for the last 2 years, getting you on the webcast. So how do you manage to still enjoy your job from a playing standpoint and from your assistant's playing standpoint?
Well, I did have to, I haven't played in a golf tournament in a long time. I still like to play golf. I still hit some balls, but 18 holes, 5 hours, that's not going to do it. So I'm a 6, 9, 12 hole guy late in the day. I got to play with Randy last week, as a matter of fact, 18 holes. I haven't done that in a long time. So you kind of got to pick what you want to do here. You got to pick what's important. I still like to teach a little bit, so I don't want to give that up. But going back, here's the Randy Chang story. So back when he and I were working for a company, and it was all labor, keep your expenses down. God, they were just all over us on labor. As assistant pro, we were making like $1,400 a month and working 70 hours and stuff. And Randy was in charge of course, Jess Ranch. And so he said, you know what? He said, screw this. So on Tuesday or Wednesdays, he was the only one that worked. He was the only one. So he opened the cart barn. He would get the carts out. He would ring you in the golf shop. The snack bar was right behind the golf shop. He would go there and get you your Coke. He'd sell your range balls. At the end of the day, you're coming in, he's taking your cart. People are like, are you, you got a twin or what's going on, man? And so he had one day a week where he just worked himself. That way he could keep everyone happy about this labor thing. And then the rest of the week, he could be a little more comfortable. So you got to just do what you got to do, and again, going back to these capital projects and stuff, John, it is kind of nice, when all of a sudden you're going to get a new building, you're going to put, top tracer in, you're going to get some equipment, some places, God, it was so hard to get equipment there for a while because, everyone was jumping on board and grabbing some. So, so that's the way I kind of look at it. If I've had a rough day, I'm like, what, would I rather go back to the days where you're like, holy crap, how were we going with this? So, and by the way, you teaching pros out there, you got to spend a few minutes with Randy Chang. His setup at his office for his teaching is I was shocked. It is really cool, amazing. His rent is not that high. He's open 24/7 if he wants to be. He doesn't have to worry about weather or anything like that. And because he just sells it like that, he's charging like $200 a lesson, and that's hats off to him, man. That's awesome. So the other thing is, I think at a course, you got to decide what you want to do, what you're going to be good at. Like before the pandemic, we were doing 9 and dine, we were doing paint night, we were doing night golf, we were doing all this stuff, and Monday Night Football. And I'm like, these, when we got back, we were so tight on labor. I'm like, you know what? Let's look at these things. They're not really driving any revenues. They're driving labor because someone's got to do all this stuff. And I said, you know what? We're just going to shuck it, and we stopped doing it. And I got a little bit of grief for some of it, but even 9 and dine, which was somewhat popular, you're blocking off your tee because you got a shotgun. And Fridays are huge for us. So I'm like, this just doesn't make any sense anymore. And we were also open for breakfast, daily back then too. I said, wait a minute, let's look at this again. How many people are coming in for breakfast when you're golfing? Not that many. So, so we got rid of that. And then also the snack bar, we moved, and this is an idea for everyone, is we moved all our drinks, beers, danishes, snacks, candies, all that into the golf shop. And the golf shop's killing it. We're doing 10 or 13,000 a month, just in beverages and stuff like that, because it's right there. Men golfers were kind of lazy. And so you're checking in. Okay, you check in your green fee. Now you got to walk over to the restaurant. The restaurant might be busy. The server's, doing something else. You just want to get a water and you want to get going. It's not really worth it. You don't want to wait another line. You want another transaction. If you put it, we got 2 coolers right in front of them. And it's been massive. I mean, it's been the only thing you can't get a hamburger out of the golf shop. And then I also put some tip jars in for the staff. Going back to keeping your staff, John, all of a sudden now, they're making 10, 20, 30, 40 bucks a day in tips. Hey, that's cool with me. Buys them lunch, gives them a little spending money, keeps them from thinking about going to work at Waba Grill and stuff like that. And, and it's really helped out a lot. So that's a good tip that I would give to everybody. And also going back to the instructors on time, I want Eric Yu, shout out to Eric Yu. He does a lot of junior stuff here at Cedar Lakes, does a great job. And I was talking to him, he goes, man, I'm just spending so much time scheduling, and I got to schedule, this class, and I got to schedule this. And I'm on the phone with this lady about, lessons for kids. And I'm like, we got another instructor at one of our courses who's kind of famous. He's done a great job, and everything that he does is online. You book your lesson online, you pay for it online. That's it. There's no, hey, can you move me around and all this kind of stuff, because it does get very time consuming. So I think something for some of you instructors should think about. And then technology is also good. Like a couple of things we've done on our website is, one thing that's really annoying is you get these donation requests. And it's like, wait a minute, you want me to donate $300 or $400 worth of golf to you? I know it's a great cause, but you're never going to bring your event here. I know that, that. I got no shot at your event. So every year you're coming to me, I got to deal with this. I said, you know what? Wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense. So on our website, at Cedar Lake's website, we have a donation request. So you got to fill it. So now I got the staff to say, just fill that out. The committee will get back to you. Fill it out. So it keeps them away from me. It puts up a little bit of a barrier to keep them off of me. Then they fill it out. And then, if they ask me, I say, well, the committee's got to look at it. So now it's just not on me anymore. And then, you tell them no, and then you go from there. And what's also good is if you get a good one in there that you really want, like maybe there's this tournament at South Hills that I've wanted for years, and hey, we're competitive. So I'll say, I tell you what, I'll donate to you, but the main man has to come in here and get it from me and spend a few minutes with me, the main guy. So now the main guy comes in, show him around. I get to know him a little bit. And I learned this from John Walker at Twin Oaks Golf Course 4 years ago. He would do this. He would mark that down. So he didn't get that tournament this year. So he would mark that down. And then the Monday after the tournament, he would call the tournament guy and say, hey, how'd it go at South Hills? Go, wow, things, I got some issues there, man. I was wishing someone would talk to me about that. Well, what was it? Oh, the tables weren't set up in the banquet room like I wanted to. The sign wasn't set out right, and da. And I'll be damned, he would turn that into, he would just listen to this guy, and he would pick up that tournament the next year. So that's a great way to pick up events. And I tell you what, that when we would host that, he'd say, listen, the sign, the table costs and all this stuff, these are the 3 things she's looking for. We got to jump all over that. So using technology for that's good. Also, if you're looking for a wedding, you're looking for a banquet, you're looking for a golf lesson, for an outing, it all starts on our website. You fill it out. Excuse me, John, I've been fighting this cough. But so now, you get, instead of a guy with an outing, tire kicking, he's got 20 people, he wants to pay $30 and he wants a shotgun. Well, that ain't gonna work. So now you can kind of email, say, hey, that's not going to work. And you can go from that. Instead of sitting there spending 20 minutes on the phone with them, you can kind of go through the ones that work for you or not. Or even from an instruction standpoint, I don't teach on weekends. So when they send out their instruction information, I can see in there, oh, you want weekends. So I'll pass it on to Eric. Or they want late in the evenings. I don't do that either. So I'll pass that to Greg. Or, hey, it's a 7-year-old. He doesn't know how to play golf. I said, well, you know what? Here, Eric, this would be perfect for you for your classes. So you kind of, you save a lot of time instead of going through, 10, 15 minutes on the phone, kind of weeding through this stuff. So use technology as much as you can. The other things that we use is, Ring Central has been big. We put in Ring Central just a couple of years ago. And man, it's awesome. Someone leaves a message, it's emailed to you. You don't have to go to your desk and put in your code. So if it's a message that needs to go to somewhere else, you can just forward it. That's been an awesome deal, man. Also,
it's interesting. You talk about tournaments, and I got a question on the back end for you regarding men's clubs. but the tournament business is kind of becoming a lost art with the popularity of the game and the fact that people's tee sheets are filled no matter what.
Yes.
Like going out and getting tournaments, it's definitely a thieves business. And I'm just looking at the roster. There's none of our here at South Hills. There's none of our sister club pros that are on the call this morning. But it really is a thieves game going
You know?
after tournaments that are, perhaps not so happy with how their experience is going at a like club, and there's an
Yes.
opportunity for us to steal them. It's definitely a wolves business. But my question on the back end of that is, with the popularity of golf and with the impacted nature of your tee sheets, how do you still remember where you came from in terms of taking care of your men's club, and what do you do with them?
Well, that's another one. This one's a little controversial too, but if you look at JJ Keegan, he's got a pretty cool book. I don't agree with all of it, but he's got a good book. And coming out of COVID, I kind of was looking at this. I'm like, wait a minute, and you look at your players clubs, whatever you want to call it. They're 8 o'clock on Saturday, every Saturday, which is your primo tee time. They want to do a shotgun. So now you got to block off some extra times because they got to come through. You don't quite know what their count's going to be. Like, okay. They want a discount. And then if you look at most of your bitching and complaining, most of it's coming from them. So wait a minute. So your 8 o'clock Saturday, which is your primo tee time, you should be selling for more. You're going to discount it every week. You're going to mess around with a shotgun, which slows up play, and you don't know the player count. And then you're going to get all these headaches in return. So over the years, we stopped doing a lot of shotguns, but we were still doing an event once a month and so forth. And at the beginning of this year, I shucked it. I went to the SCGA has an associate program. I went with them. Still got decent sign up, but I was looking at it and it just wasn't working. Now, if you're in a tough location, or if you're at a course, kind of a rough course, that if you need whatever you can get, then I would say hang on to it, because you got to do what you got to do. At Hesperia, we'll kind of do whatever we got to do there because we're in a tough location. We need what we can, but it's one of the best things I ever did was getting rid of my players club, because I don't have the headaches, and we're making more money, and it's more efficient. So you might want to look at that. And one thing we did at the one course that we took over a few years ago was they didn't have any clubs. And my manager was like, wait, maybe we need to do this. I said, no, this is perfect. Leave it alone. I go, I don't need headaches. You don't either. And the business is what it is. It's not really helping our business that much. So be careful, because some of those clubs can really take over. And if they get the ear of your bosses, or they get the ear of your owner, man, now you that's tough sledding. You're stuck. I mean, you really are. So think about that. I mean, if I ever had to do a Saturday 8 a.m. club, I'm going to charge 40% more. I mean, it's worth it. You're going to get that. So that's one thing I want to talk about today. And that's, again, if you're in a tough location, you take what you can get. But if not, let's be selective with it. Our tournaments, we're a lot more selective with it now, and we don't do shotguns every day. We do Monday, Tuesdays. That works out. Fridays we used to do all these shotguns. I'm like, Friday's one of our busiest days. Why are we doing this? So you kind of want to look at that. And again, going back to work-life balance, it'll save you a lot of time and focus on things that are good for your business. So, and then let's talk about, rainmaking. I love talking about this. So one thing when I was talking to Ken Farrell about is you gotta figure out a way to make it rain, whether you're at a private course, public, in between. What can you do to bring in some more revenues? And it's a lot easier now than it was, but most courses have a leak. And what I'm talking about is there's a leaky faucet. There's something that's not quite there. And when I'm looking at this new course we're going to look at, I've been keeping my eye on this thing, trying to figure out where these leaks are. And one thing I've seen at most places is just the tee times. In a lot of places, first tee time 6 o'clock, first tee time 7 o'clock. And we were at a real famous course in Florida that you guys all know about. And I was playing there, visiting my friends, and first tee time was 7 o'clock. Well, the sun's up at like 6:10. And I'm going, what's going on, man? And our first tee time 7. And I'm like, wow, every day? Yeah, 7 o'clock, because we got to get the course ready and da 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 da. And I'm going, whoa, at Sierra Lakes, we're teeing off we're teeing off in the dark. You know, the other day we're teeing off at 5:23. We got a light on the first tee, squeeze that first group off. And so looking at that course down in Florida, you know, they're losing about 40,000 a week. You know, I mean, that numbers just, when I was playing, I was just going, oh my God, you know, that doesn't include F&B, range, and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, if you're talking about noise setting up the course, I mean, you can even buy an electric mower and mow before 7 if you got a noise restraint. 40,000 a week is going to pay for that pretty quick. You know, a lot of the leaks that I see at courses is, where do your leads go? Like at South Hills, your membership's your most important thing. If your membership's full at your courses, you're doing good. I mean, all in all, you're doing good. But if you're not, you know, where do those membership leads go? And a lot of times, you know, oh, they go to Natalie. Oh, we love Natalie. Okay, well, you love Natalie. I get it. But what did Natalie do with that lead? Does Natalie play? Natalie doesn't even play golf. So you got a guy who's fired up and play golf, and your membership person doesn't play golf, doesn't know anything about the golf course. You know, I don't know about that one. I still can't figure out why at any private course, how come the head pro or the assistant pro doesn't handle any membership leads that are dealing with golf? If I was an assistant pro again, I'd say, hey man, let me do this. You don't have to hire another membership director. Give me a spiff if I do it. But, you know, we can talk about golf all day. And then also when a new person joins, you know, one of their problems they have is, who do they play with? And so, you know, now you can kind of, if you're the assistant pro or the head pro, you can introduce them to the guys that play golf. Or maybe at a club, you say, hey, you know what, you're interested in joining, Mr. Kulo. Do you have a friend that wants to maybe interested? Yeah, I do. I tell you what, we got a deal right now. If you bring your friend in, you know, the membership fee, initiation fee is, you know, half or whatever. You got to force them. We'll do this. So now they got someone to play with. But you look at where does that lead go, and who does it go to? Did Natalie answer the lead? I don't know. You know, we're testing this new course out, and, you know, I sent in a wedding lead a couple of weeks ago and haven't heard anything. Where do those go? You know, everyone needs weddings and banquets, but what happens when the phone call rings or the email comes in? You know, here at Cedar Lakes, any lead, I get CC'd on that. If he was looking for a tournament, wedding, banquet, I can look at it. So then I can go back when I talk to my guys this week and say, hey man, where's the lead for that Gomez Quinceanera, that email? Oh, I talked to her and she's coming in Tuesday at 2:00. But, or if you get the, you get the saucer eyes, you go, well, hey, come on, man. You know, the people want to give you money. You know, they want to spend money with you. What are you doing with this? Or with tournament outings, you know, I say, where are we at with this? Oh, I talked to him yesterday. I haven't gotten back with him yet. I said, well, come on, man. You know, this was a pretty good lead. Where are you at with that? And I find out managers get so busy, they kind of, you know, that's where the rain's coming, baby. That's the clouds coming in, is those memberships and those weddings, those banquets and so forth. Everyone kind of needs those. But where are they going? And then do they have any sales training at all? You know, are they getting back to them? What's going on with that? And another thing with technology, we put on our website, we did a tour. And I said, let's, and I did it. I finally said, you know, here, if you're going to give someone a tour, let's give them a tour, because we're doing all these tours. And, you know, they're just tire kicking, or it wasn't going to work, or they didn't have the budget. So I did a tour all the way through from the parking lot in. And so now they know what they're going to see. So if they're interested, now they're going to click in there, and you kind of get through that first barrier, and you save yourself a lot of time that way. So those are some things you can do is, you know, where's your leaks at? You know, one thing, I used to play a lot of golf in Tucson with my late father-in-law, and we always like to play in the afternoon. And, you know, it's sunny, that they don't do this time change stupid thing we do here. And so the siren goes off, you know, with like 45 minutes to go daylight. I'm like, he goes, oh, we got to go. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. And we're playing Randolph South, which is a pretty good course. And I was like 300, 400 par on the back nine. I'm like, whoa, hold on, man. We got 4 holes to go. I'm not, no. The siren went off. I said, what the goddamn siren? What are you talking about? Because that means we're done. We have to bring the carts in. I go, we still got 45 minutes, man. What? And we went round and round. I'm like, dude, I'm like 300 par. And so, you know, I begrudgingly went in. But then the next time we played there, I said, dude, I got this. Okay. So I gave the cart kid $20. I said, we're going to stay out there for a while. Okay. But, you know, that just kills your late play, you know, and sometimes I'll listen to my guys on the phone or whatever, and I'll hear, when's cart's got to come in? Oh, I said, dark. The answer is dark. You can play till dark. Okay. If you start squeezing those guys, they won't play. If you give them a chance, even if they got to play the last 2 holes with their shoes around the hole or glow ball or whatever, you know, give them a chance, you know, and that's a big one. I see a lot of places is the first tee time, how long you can stay out. And also tee time intervals is big, you know, courses that do these 10-minute tee times at public courses, boy, you're leaving a lot on the table, man. I'll debate with you too. I'll prove it to you. You know, you gotta, it'd be like having a kind of a medium-sized small restaurant that's busy, and you say, you know what, we're kind of bumping into each other. The staff's kind of, it's in the way. We're going to take 2 or 3 tables out. Well, you're never going to recoup that revenue. So you want to kind of look at those tee time intervals. You also got to look at how hard the course is and see if you can ease up. I've tried to make my courses faster playing since COVID, you know, ropes, roughs, stuff like that, keep them moving, because that's a big revenue leak is when on the tee time thing. How's that, John?
Hey, that's good. I was about to kind of wrap it up. Those are all the questions that we have. Oh, it looks like there might be one more there. No. So yeah, if anybody's looking to save labor, Randy Chang is available for his one-man show. He'll come in on your slow days and he'll, I think I heard that he'll run the shop, he'll run the snack bar, he'll do the carts, and I'm sure he'll pick the range. He's the biggest thing I got out of this presentation. We're gonna be calling him for Tuesdays here at South Hills.
And by the way, shout out, if you guys get a chance, you ought to probably if you could spend 15-20 minutes once or twice a year with Ken Farrell. I mean, that dude is on it, man. And he leased a driving range one time, so he's in the business. That dude can really help out a lot. So shout out to him.
And Rick, you know, on behalf of the Education Committee for the Southern California PGA and the Catalyst webinar series, thank you so much for coming on and, you know, sharing all of your experiences and your wealth of education. Your energy is infectious, and you touched on a lot of really, really good points. And you know, I am a proponent of the membership sales role being a golf professional. That's how we do it here at South Hills.
And if anyone wants to, you know, call me or email me, feel free. I love doing this kind of stuff. This is cool.
Excellent. And then just kind of to follow up on that, everybody that's on the webcast this morning will receive 1 PDR credit for attending. I'm going to send out a little thank you here to Rick shortly. That'll have the YouTube recording of this morning's webcast, and Rick's contact information will be on there as well if you want to follow up with him on any further questions.
Oh,
and I'm dying to know what that 5th property is, but you don't have to tell us.
Not yet.
2 months. Thank you so much for your time, and everybody joining us this morning. Have a great day, have a great weekend, and stay cool out there.
Thanks, guys. That was fun. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick.